All right, my love. Look, I got you on the pod.
I'm here.
For our friends and listeners, we had some scheduling conflicts to get my wife on the pod because we have two little boys to raise. So we've been busy.
Children.
Well, um, thanks for jumping on. I know we
You're
talked
so
about
welcome.
this for a long
You're
time.
so welcome.
You're like, well, like, don't you want to have like everyone else
I'm
on?
not cool enough. Not cool
And
enough.
I was like, no, like you have like the perfect story.
You think so?
Absolutely. So, I mean, should we I feel like we should give like some history.
Some
Like there's a
background?
lot of people that know like all the history, but I feel like there isn't like a ton of people who know
That's
all the
fair.
history.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, my wife and I met at Lima Senior, which is our high school. What was that like? I was a junior?
2009?
Yeah, I was a junior, you were a sophomore.
Yep.
We met in gym class.
Yep.
And from there, it was just a nice, fun, sports filled,
Really good friends.
doing stuff we weren't supposed to be doing, out and about, having drinks and
Yeah.
doing the old fun high school stuff.
Friends' houses, garages, garage parties,
Yeah, yeah.
all the fun small town stuff.
And so I know, but I think it's really good for everyone else to know. Also, selfishly, Sam wanted to come on this podcast because she's had a very successful career, but doesn't talk about it. And then when we run into people, people have no idea that people like think you just don't like
I
do
don't know
anything at
what they
all.
think I do.
They don't think you
Nothing.
work or I mean you are taking some time off, but like
Yeah.
overall they think that I don't know if they think you've worked for a while. So
Yeah.
we'll get into it, but like I think it's funny. So let's go to like senior year. I think that's like perfect time. What did you want to be when you were like we're senior year, we're getting ready to graduate? Like, what did you want to do?
Well, we used to go camping when I was in high school, and we had a really good family friend who was a pharmacist, and she made it look very glamorous. Like, obviously, I'm a young kid. Like, I'm like, oh, this person makes a lot of money. They work pretty much when they want to, and she would kind of give me the rundown. But obviously, I knew nothing about pharmacy. I had no idea what that would entail. But I said that's what I wanted to do. And then when you're a senior, obviously you have to write a paper about what you want to do, and that's when you have to do your research. And lo and behold, I did research on pharmacy, and that's just not what I
No.
well.
But like, talk a little bit more about that because I feel like that was a lot of the reason I decided to start the podcast because I feel like that influence of being a pharmacist came from like as you mentioned, right? Like
A family friend.
family friend.
Family friend. Obviously, money in mind. You're like, oh, this seems like a good career choice. Let me do that. But it really just comes down to the internet and what it
Yeah,
tells.
what it
I
tells
mean,
you.
what it
Yeah.
gives you back, right? Like you have to kind of lean on that and hope that that's the truth because if it's not, you don't know any different.
But tell our listeners like what was your real passion at that time?
If you know me, you know that fashion is my what do you even call it?
Oh, I mean,
My
I think you're
calling,
calling.
my
That's a great way to put it.
enjoyment.
Yeah.
Like I look forward to getting dressed in the morning. I look forward to like going
Everyone
to
knows you're
stores.
stylish. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I even love to go
My wife
to
pretty much
Miami.
dresses me and the boys. So
I even like to go to Miami to the design district and go in stores that maybe I can't necessarily afford, but just being in like the presence of them and appreciating, the work that went into designing garments, I enjoy.
yeah.
I wanted to be a designer, but I can't sew. So.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was like the big Achilles heel.
Yeah, it's really hard.
But I feel like you are the only person I know who knew definitively
Yeah.
when they were 18, like, this is who I should be. You thought you were gonna go to Ohio State, do everything you did, and then like go to New York, be a fashion designer.
Which I did like the first part.
Yeah, so talk about okay, we leave Lima Senior.
You leave Lima Senior.
You first year.
I knew what major I wanted.
Yep.
That was
You go to Ohio State.
yep.
What'd you major in?
Fashion and retail studies. It was the human ecology school,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
it's kind of covers the retail and merchandising world, if you will.
Yep.
I was probably the only person in college who liked going to my classes.
Yeah,
Because
I was so jealous. I was like, you're so happy to like study and go
yeah,
to your classes and
yeah. I mean, I would go and I would learn about textiles and where materials source from and you know the ins and outs of the retail world, and I loved it. It was great.
yeah. But you, like I mentioned, you were the only person I knew who knew exactly what they wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah. I will say though, while in school, you think you have the major that you want, and maybe you do. What do you do with it? Where do you go
That's
with
the
it?
key. Yeah.
Like you're going to these classes and you're doing the day to day and you're passing these exams and like everything's great, but like where do I apply? Where do I go? What city do I want to live in? What brands hire kids out of college? Like
Right.
I have no idea.
Well, shameless plug. I feel like that is why I started the Izzy AI Career Advisor platform that will release soon, a couple weeks. But a lot of that was from, hey, if you specifically, especially someone who does actually know what they wanted to do, if you would have had more data around like, okay, who are the people who have either majored or have done something in the world of fashion at my age,
Yeah.
who have taken maybe
What
an
are the
alternative
career?
route?
What
What are the
are the
paths?
career names?
Yep.
What are the job titles? Like, I think oftentimes everybody's like they have an industry they want to get into, but like,
Yeah.
what do I search for?
Well, what's the big one though? Where do you need to live?
Oh yeah.
That's what I feel like is the biggest gotcha when we leave,
Yeah.
when we left Ohio State was if you want to be an enterprise technology sales rep, you have to move to Austin, Seattle,
Yeah.
New York, Boston, wherever the hubs are, Santa Monica. Or if you want to be in fashion, you got to move to Los Angeles or you got to move to New York. Those are like, Chicago's probably doing a little more, maybe. But like, those are
Not that
still,
big.
but if you want to go big, you want to work for some of the big retailers, you have to move to New York. And so, unless you're willing to do that, it's, they don't tell you that in college, though. None of your professors or teachers tell you that. And so, like now you're through Ohio State, you're in your first role, which obviously I remember. Like, talk to our listeners about like the ultimate like shock when you get out of school and you realize, okay, if I stay in Columbus, these are the opportunities that are open to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is like you get out of college and you need to make money, and so you're desperate for whatever you can find that
Yeah.
feels like it could be right. And I fell into the recruiting world, which there's a lot of people listening to this who probably know exactly what I'm talking about, or they've worked there themselves.
Yeah. Hey, I will say though, that Inside Global, those places,
100%.
like you get taught a ton.
100%.
You get out of your comfort zone. I mean, great place.
Yes.
Like right out for sure.
Yes. Yes. So I did a lot of that. I was able to get into an operations role at Express. Obviously, not like the, perfect fashion job, if you will, but
Yep.
it was a stepping stone.
But talk through that experience though at Express because you and I remember like going through that. Like we talked a ton about it.
Yeah.
But like I remember voicing it in a way that you're working for a large corporation that happens to sell clothes.
Yes.
Versus
Yes.
like what you dreamed you'd be doing in that company.
Yeah, I mean, you think that you're gonna, start working at this place and like jump right into decision making and have an impact on what's chosen and when and what society's looking for, or girls your age or older girls, women even, and you find out that it's a full blown operation, which I think that just comes from
well,
not really
also being like a really
industry.
large, like it's once you get to like that Fortune 500 like size, it does just naturally happen.
Yes, there's decisions and data behind every choice of what's created and mass produced, but and then we moved to Austin, and then I got into Customer success, client success, they're like pretty interchangeable.
But I think we should let's take a step back. Remember, like the entire like, hey, what would I do like in Austin? And like we had that talk about just like, hey, here are some of the careers around. Like if you don't
Well,
want to
yeah,
be
like
in
Kendra Scott is
Kendrick
there.
Scott's
That's like kind
there.
of the biggest. And
Outdoor Voices was like really,
it
it was like
just got started.
exploding at that time.
Like she had just opened up
Yeah, like it was
a
starting to pick up.
manufacturing. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, and look at it now. But yeah, I mean, I had to come to the conclusion that like living in this new city may not have the industry that I was looking for.
Yep.
Just wasn't a big.
But I think it's weird. I think it's weird because like alternatively, like you learned that you had skill sets that like maybe you didn't know you even had, to be honest.
Yeah, and
like
I can actually thank my recruiting.
I was gonna say that's why I said that. Yeah.
Account management time, because you learn a lot about the skills you have and like, oh, okay, maybe like I kind of can talk to people even though like you know me,
You know, you don't like to talk to me.
But
not avoiding. You just don't like.
Yeah, I think like less is more. But I think that you do learn a lot about your strengths and where you can excel.
Yeah.
And client success has kind of done that for me, and I've made a little bit of money.
You did. Well, see, that's what's gonna be my segue. I feel like it's tough because like you don't want to feel like you have to make a decision on passion or money.
No, but if you do it correctly, your job can give you the financial freedom to enjoy those passions. That's where I've been, and that's where I've stayed.
Right.
Thus far, how many years have you been at school? Like 7.
Yeah, you've been in customer success. Why don't you explain to anyone listening, like what is customer success? Because that is a role that is 100% not discussed in school.
Yeah, it's, if I could just explain it kind of briefly, it's kind of post-sale. So like all of the relationship things that take place between customers and companies happens after the deal is done.
Correct.
So you pitch whatever the product is, it sells, they're implemented, they're onboarded, and sometimes that even comes from my group, but retention and ROI, return on investment, with why they went with the company in the first place is what we're responsible for.
Yeah.
Upselling, so like introducing new products and reasoning behind that.
Yep.
My group deals a lot with the EVRs, business reviews. So we pretty much take it from the sales team.
Yeah, but I feel like, to your point, right? Like when you, and we'll get into like what your next venture is going to be, but I think the skills that you learned in that role definitely prepared you to have ownership with customers, get really accountability, strategic thinking, like get really close to the customer and intimately know like what will change their business. Like I think you've done really well in that over the last.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with all verticals, company size.
Yeah.
I think I kind of gradually just kind of
see, but I think that was like honestly a lot of like the reasons why I thought through the platform in the mobile app was like, if you would have taken the personality and behavior assessment like 4, 5, 6 years ago and discovered that your behavior and your personality were really suited towards that ownership, accountability, strategic thinking, and your outcome was customer success, maybe you would have felt stronger about just going all in on customer success, even though you ended up landing there. But like, or if you would have even known that was like a path, you would have gone down that path and say, hey, here are the steps I need to do, maybe take on some account management and then go on to customer success. But I think that is what I really want to get to people is like, we want to provide you just more data up front so that like you can have a successful career that you thought maybe was a little untraditional, but your personality was suited for it. Yeah. Like that, because that's really who you are. Like, you know,
I mean, in the truth,
because you want to push a little bit. Like that's your personality. Like you're gritty. You want to push a little bit,
yeah.
but you don't want to forecast sales like me every quarter.
Do not
You
give me
don't
a number.
you don't want to call a number every
Do
quarter.
not give me a number. I don't. Okay.
And see, it's a little different. Like for me, like it's like I love calling a number and like, hey, here's the number we're gonna get to this quarter.
Yeah.
Here's some risk, whatever. But like,
I love being able to
yeah,
tell my customers, like, I'm not your salesperson. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just telling you what I recommend based on historical conversations. Like, I
yeah,
think there's just two sides to it. And
I, yeah.
both are right.
But I think let's go back to more like the location thing because it's hard to be a customer success manager in Columbus or Chicago or like maybe not Chicago, like but just like maybe more mid-sized cities where like I think the biggest piece is like you and I figured that out the hard way,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but like it did work out. But we figured out you have to move to where like the hubs are.
Yeah.
So like if it's Austin or if it's Santa Monica or Boston or New York, whatever they are, like you have to move to where everyone is. You know, if you want to have a certain type of career. And I think that's the biggest piece that like, you know, you don't really learn through the mobile app, but like you will learn through our podcast that like and guests I have on that like every single person we know.
It depends what you care about. Like if you care about culture and you care about knowing who you work with, you have to live in a city where there's an office, like a hub where you.
Well, I know that's like really it's like the controversy now of like, do I have to be in an office or whatever?
I mean, there's two types of people out there.
But I think early on, like you do, like think about how much you benefited, how much I benefited from like when I was at AWS and I was sitting behind Faisal for those 3 years, or like some leaders that like I had the opportunity to learn from some world class leaders that like you can't learn that through a Zoom call. Like I'm just walking around talking to them, and like you learn to shape, your working style and your preferences like through that.
Yeah.
And I feel like you benefited a lot from, always butcher it, like because they ended up being GoDaddy, right? Yeah. So you started at Main Street Hub, and then it was GoDaddy.
Yeah, Main Street Hub, and then they were acquired by GoDaddy.
Yeah, and I feel like you learned a lot of that like grittiness through like, hey, I got to get up and go to the office and like learn how people kind of interact with each other. And like, it was still kind of early for us. Like we were like 26, 27.
Yeah, it's definitely, a shock to the system.
I know.
Waking up early, there's a commute, could be traffic. It's dark when you get off work.
Yep.
It's just, it could be.
And then, so now we're in a state of we have a 2-year-old son. For most of you know, Beckham is our wild child. And we also have is he 8? He's 8 weeks. No, he's full 2 months now.
Yeah, 2 months.
Like 2 days ago. Yeah, yesterday. Yeah. So yeah, that was Friday. So we have a 2-month-old and a 2-year-old. And I think your story is like really good for like navigating career, and I love motherhood. Like I feel like you haven't had to like sacrifice doing both, and like right now you're taking a break because like you're like I wanted to take the 6 months off this year to just like really spend time with both, and it's been amazing.
It has.
Be honest, like
I have memories with both of them that I can just like hold on to.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it being as like beautiful as it's been to just like be home with both of them. And I get to see Becca more.
Yep.
Like I wasn't seeing him, a lot throughout the day.
Throughout
the weeks, and Preston's home, and so now like, I think if you could have a message for like women who are like kind of in your spot now, who like, hey, I still, want to have my career, but I also don't want to miss out on like, my kids. It's like kids, kind of early days. Like, what would be something like you would say in terms of like where you're probably going next?
I think you gotta do your own thing if you want both.
It's a good answer, Mom.
You gotta do your own thing. I mean, you can't work under someone else's umbrella forever.
Yep.
Someone else will call the shots. You know, I left the job I was at before I had Preston because of a manager and a leader that I didn't align with,
Yep.
which hadn't happened actually in my career.
Yeah, I was gonna say you had a pretty good run because I feel like we all had at least one.
I've never gotten to a point where I got to, you know, I had a manager that I just physically just didn't.
Yeah.
Just didn't know.
I obviously fully agreed with that one.
Yeah. So honestly, though, without that,
you might have stayed.
Just stay.
Yeah, you might have stayed. Yeah, that's
really
true.
And it always becomes this: what if? You know, what if I did do this? And you know, then you fast forward 20 years from now, and I'm like,
yeah.
Wonder what it would have been like.
See, but I do think everyone needs the light bulb moment.
Yeah.
No matter, it does look different for everyone, and I feel like some of the feedback I've been getting a lot lately from friends and everyone who's been watching the pod, is everyone. There's been a lot of light bulbs that have clicked since watching the pod, and I appreciate it, guys. But I still get the same answer of I don't know where to start, and I don't know And we were talking about this last night at dinner. Like we bucket this in like two ways, and we try to keep it as simple as possible. But one is what everyone tells you. If you're passionate about something and you know what that is, just put some structure behind it. Find out who's maybe done it, maybe has failed, maybe has succeeded. Talk to both and kind of figure out how you could find your niche. But the other one is the bucket I think more people fall into, and is they don't know what they're passionate about, and they still want to do something, but they don't know what to do. And so our advice is like, find what you're skilled at or good at, however you want to phrase it, and figure out how to put structure around that. Like if you're someone who is really big on fitness and like that's where you're dialed in at, figure out if there's a market for something you do really well in fitness that could be a niche that you can carve out a section of the economy.
Or it could come down to like an experience. Like we're not like first time parents anymore, but like we were.
Yeah. So that was like who I was talking to the other day.
Yeah. If you feel like there could be a way that you can help other people with a journey or being first time parents or getting into work like fitness for the first time. Like,
that's true.
Well, come out of that too.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know he's listening. So I was having coffee with a friend who mentioned that he was getting some value from the pod, and he wants to start a community of new fathers. So if you're a father who has like your first two kids, and we all know you don't know what to do when that first year, nobody knows, and how stressful and how anxious you are in that first year and a half. And so he wants to create a community for like new fathers. And I said, hey, we'll put some structure around it, create an app where like we all could get on and, kind of have a board where we can discuss, hey, my kid has a 104 temperature. What do I do? Do I take him to the hospital?
Like, don't panic.
Don't panic. Do I take him to the hospital or do I let it ride? It's like, no, just give him Tylenol, because if you take him to the hospital, they're just going to give him Tylenol too, and you got to bring him back home, and now you got a hospital bill.
It's like $150 motion or 17.
Right. So
yeah, I think it just comes down to like just doing it, like doing.
Those are the.
You don't even need to have like all the research, but like a stepping stone.
Yeah, I mean those are the buckets. I mean those are like two. We would view them that way, but for you now, which I'm very excited about, is like you going through. First of all, everyone listening, like everything I've ever like talked about or put up so far, like this has been my voice at home, who's kept me sane and on track. So, but through that process of you helping and coaching me through like all this, we discovered how we could take next steps to get your venture started. And so I'm just going to say it. Sam is launching her boutique online retail store?
Yeah, we call it that. That's what it
You
is.
could explain better.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit of a mix. It's a little like passion project. I think that
Well,
I've always
tell
had.
us. So, what's the name of the project?
It'll be called Ashton Avenue.
What's the significance behind
If
that
you know me at all, that's the street that I grew up on. And
street?
that
I
was,
spent many days on, by the way.
yes, and I would sit up in my bedroom upstairs and growing up, just dreaming about, what my career would
Yeah,
look like
yeah,
and what my next outfit is going to
it's
be.
true.
And I love like curating.
You brought the heat today, by the way.
Um,
Yeah,
um, I like curating my own outfits, and I look forward to the events that we have because it means I get to put together, you know,
yeah.
my own, outfit and style.
So I think this is a really good segment that like we could spend some time on for people who are like, okay, you found that idea and like you were passionate about that idea, and now you have kind of at least a step. And like I think where everyone gets really stuck is they like, okay, I have the idea, but now what are like when you think about your next step, because I think it's important to like tell people like what do you believe is the next step of going from idea to essentially business plan, then to some type of like, for you it won't be prototype, but it'll be like, how do I go test and validate my market and understand if like I should go all in this direction or should I pivot quickly, like
Well, I think what we've talked a lot about is like for me, the dream is to have a retail space that I
like a
can
physical brick and
physically
mortar.
walk into and you know do all the things I need to do and have a place to go to.
Yeah,
But with that said, kind of what you just said about is this going to work? Are people going to like this idea? Are they going to like the items that I pick and kind of all of that? Like online is going to be our first kind of dip our feet into it.
yeah.
So having a site that people can buy off of, and that'll be kind of our test
But
run, if you will.
how do you pick? Like I know how you pick, for example. Like I know it's like more about like what style you're into.
Yeah.
But like, how did you derive like, oh, this is the type of clothes I want to sell, and this is who I want to sell it to.
Yeah.
Like, who's your target? Like,
I think I've spent enough years and been in enough stores all
yeah,
over the world, basically,
yep, for sure.
to know what I
I
like
know
and what
very
I
well.
don't like. I think I come from like a background of women who we spent a lot of our weekends at malls and shopping and going all over Ohio on the weekends. And I always found that going to the malls and going in those stores, like it never fit my style. And my biggest fear always was that, oh my God, what if somebody else is wearing this dress too?
Oh, for
Like
sure, for sure.
I can't get that out of my mind. So like
Yeah.
going in stores like Forever 21 growing up and H&M growing up, I was just like, I want something different. And I was very blessed with grandparents and a mom who always pushed me to buy the thing that was different. My grandma would always say, it looks very different on the hanger. Like try it on. I swear it'll look different on. And like that's kind
That
of
is
stuck
very
with
true.
me. Yeah, like they always said like when it came to picking out like homecoming dresses and prom dresses, it's like just try it on. Like it may look different on you than it does on the hanger, and that's like always been in my head. So when it comes to Ashton Avenue, I'm also a huge vintage freak. Like I love going all over Columbus to find old things, whether it's home goods or clothing. Um, so I want it to be a mix. I want it to be new and from the past. And however that fits your style,
Yeah.
that's for you to decide. But I think for me, it's kind of for all my shoppers out there who just want that unique thing that they know that nobody else is going to have, at least in their community or where they live. I think that's for me. That's what I enjoy is finding that really cool pair of jeans or like that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
really cool ring.
Jeans are underrated. I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like you gotta spend the money on some good jeans.
Yeah. But I
Uh,
don't want things to be expensive. Like now that you say that.
yeah, that's true. We gotta get that out too. Yeah.
I really don't want that to be the only.
Well, I feel like your style. I feel like we talked about this too. Like yours.
Oh, I will never judge a store. I will find things from all over.
Oh, for sure. You do a really good
Yeah.
job of like piecing things from each store. But I feel like
Yes.
your style is like you want an elevated, like casual style still, but like you want it to look very like cohesive.
People to be
Like this is my
cool.
personality in my
Yeah.
clothes. Like I'm wearing my
Effortless.
personality. Yeah. Like I'm not doing too much, but like I'm wearing my personality
Yes.
right now.
Yes. I like to buy things that I like. And then I buy things sometimes that I really like, but I won't wear it for like 2 years.
That's so true.
Always
You'll pop the barrel jeans out that you bought like 2 years ago.
If you buy what you like and maybe you don't have a place to wear it necessarily, 2 years from now you will have a time
The moment
to wear that outfit.
I know you buy so much so often. I can't.
I know.
Keep up sometimes. Yeah, and it just like I'm like, when did you get that? I was like, I don't know when you bought that.
Yeah, like it could be something I like literally bought in high school.
Yeah.
Got as a Christmas gift. Like fast forward 5 years, it's like
yeah, true.
It's like a good pair of jeans. You gotta hold on to those, like you know.
Yeah, I mean, but like I think also like give listeners like you have had fears about like doing this. And I think people don't see that, right? Like, I think they hear, like, oh, you're launching something. And it's like, oh, it must have been perfect. You must have really thought through this. It must have worked out through
like
your head really well.
Leaving my job is, like, very controversial, and I get that. And you can have that opinion if you want. But we talked a lot about it, and we put a lot of thought behind it. And
Months of thought. Yeah.
And what I got in return has been, I'm so grateful. Just the memories that I have.
Well, I think too it gives you, and some people may not be able to like do that, right? But I think it goes to like if you're in a situation too where you know you're unhappy, which I think a lot of people we know are, don't like think through it too late, right? It's like, hey, when you feel those signs, like we all know what those signs are at your current employer, like when you feel those signs, like follow your gut. And I think what we want to encourage more too is instead of thinking like, oh, okay, I have to go to that next job at that next place. What we want to encourage is continue to think through that, right? But we want to give you the data from the platform to help you make that decision if that's exactly what you want to do. But more importantly, we want to create an environment that changes a cultural thought process of instead of going to that next place, why not create my place?
Yes.
My place could be that next place. I think you've been the perfect example of why can't I? Yeah, like, like why do I need to go to the next place? Like with this time I've taken off and I've thought through the business plan, I've thought through who I'm targeting, I've thought through like execution. Why can't I create my place? And I think this was the only time that you've been able to think through that way, because in the past, it's like you left a place to go to the next place. And now you're like in this place and you can't think about creating your own place.
And if you enjoy, if you want to say enjoy what you're doing, like for me, client success was like a very easy path to continue because I'm good at it. And I liked who I worked with. Like,
you still could go back.
I've never been in a company that I didn't like who I worked with. So like it was just easy to segue on to the next opportunity. Like you're just, I think it's ingrained in every student's brain is like you want to get promoted. You just want to go higher and higher and higher, but you're not really thinking outside of that. Like I'm someone when I like set my mind to something, that's what I'm going to. So for me, it was like that next promotion. Like,
well, that was the big push. When we were talking a lot, like over the last 2 or 3 months, has been like you have the drive and the grit it takes to deal with the blowbacks of like, oh, we didn't hit this initiative or like we didn't hit this milestone. And I feel like most people that like you watch or like on YouTube or whatever, like they'll say like that's the hardest part is being able to sustain the blows
Yeah.
of starting something on your own. And I feel like you have that. Like you know what that takes. And so now the universe knows. The voices of tomorrow,
Yeah.
they know.
Well,
They
those
know.
are,
Yeah.
that was a good one.
They know Sam's starting, so you can't go back.
Yeah, can't go back
You got to put
now.
yourself out there. I think that was the whole point. We did all this. It was just like, you know, who I made a joke. Who did I make that joke to the other day? I was like, oh, I told Anna. I said, this is a podcast by the people for the people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we can't go back now. And I don't even think like I mean, kids are like a whole like conversation for a different day, but like
Yeah.
you can come up with all of these reasons why you shouldn't or can't. Or
Yep.
My biggest one is like timing. Like anytime you bring it up to me, I'm like, I just don't think the time
Always.
is right.
Yeah.
I don't think the time is right, or like
No, time's never right.
yeah, time is never.
I mean,
right.
everybody to me was like, "Are you sure you're gonna try to get this off the ground?
Yeah.
Like, you got a
yeah.
newborn. You're halfway through like your first, year at, for your company, and like, where do you have the time?" And I was sitting down with someone for
You don't
lunch.
have time. Nobody has time.
No one has time. I was sitting down with someone from lunch, for lunch just earlier this week. Someone I'm probably going to partner with, a software development firm is going to help me, and he's like, "Isn't it funny when you create something that you believe is going to change the world and change your family's lives and the lives around you, you somehow find time?"
It's true. I mean, I probably won't change the world, but if I can help people dress better,
that changes the world.
I mean, kind of.
That does change the world. That changes.
Yeah.
How big of an issue do you think? And we both know this. It's just like confidence when you leave the house and you go out into the world and you're going to Target. Don't you want to? And like you're going to Target, but then you have other things you need to do for the day. Like you got energy to run. Like how many people do that and they're just not confident in how they look and where they're going. And it's like
the mood.
it's so important. It's like, don't you want to be confident when you leave the house and like you go do what you were gonna do anyway?
Yeah.
But like you feel better about yourself because you're like, I took the time to like put on what I felt good in and I felt confident. Like that changes the world, in my opinion. And I think that's also the problem. I think people don't realize like some of the stuff that they are doing does change the world. And I think if you knew you were aiming and trying to provide that kind of outcome to people, you would move differently. You would be like,
think about how boring the world would be if everybody just wore
the same thing.
Sweatpants.
Same thing. Everybody wore the same stuff. Or everyone wore a black t-shirt, like me and Heezy. And and like AG, we're like the black t-shirt gang.
Yeah.
Like so.
No, I'm nervous, but I'm excited, and I have like
support. Beckham's. Oh wow, you didn't mean that. And Beckham supports you. Beckham's got you. Yeah. Your favorite. Your little boy. Yeah. I tell you, there's nothing like the firstborn son to their mother. I have taken a back seat for the last 2 years. He will need me though when a girl breaks his heart for the first time. He will need me. So I'm waiting on that day. I don't want it to happen, but it's kind of got to happen.
Yes. Yeah. No, it will.
It will. It's got to happen. Yeah. He's gonna be like, Dad, it's not coming to you. It's coming to me.
I think they're like kids come down like when you like do end up having kids, or if you have kids, you just find this like weird piece of motivation that like you never had.
I know.
You had kids.
I know.
Like, it just didn't exist. You can be motivated all you want.
Well, I think for us too, like, I think what we've already done in our careers and our lives, like we've bettered, like our parents provided such good, loving, like beautiful households for us, and like obviously at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. But I think we're able to like give our kids a little bit of a different perspective, like living where we've lived and like gone where we've gone, doing what we're doing. Yeah. And I think we decided like couple months ago, like we both were in kind of the same spot where like we want to create some kind of legacy for our boys.
Yeah.
For them to see, no matter what happens from this, whether yours is successful or mine is or isn't or whatever, like we want them to see that like you should never be afraid to go after whatever it is you feel you should go after.
Yeah.
And that's, if anything, that's the legacy we want to leave.
Up until this point, like we have been, so that there's something to say
Yeah. Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
that as well. It's like it's not
Oh,
like
for
we
sure.
woke up and just took off with what we wanted to do. It definitely takes time.
It does.
But at least like a platform that you've come up with and created is that you shouldn't have to wait 7 years into your career. You should be able to be equipped.
Yeah, I think the only reason too, exactly. I think like the only reason I waited too was like to your point, like I didn't know what I was passionate about, and like it happened over time, and like it happens when it happens. But I think the biggest piece is like we just have to start thinking about this stuff earlier in our lives. I know the one challenge I'll have is just like, being 18, 19, all the way through like 25, like, like us, like you want to have fun. You don't really want to think about that stuff. But then it sucks when you do get 25, 26 and you weren't thinking about that stuff. And now you're stressed, and you're like, how many people we know are so stressed by like, I didn't think about this earlier enough, or like I didn't have the data I needed. And so that's the reason like I also implemented, like I want this to be fun. Like it'll be, I want it to be a social network for career advisement and like seeking your path or like becoming a founder. Like I still want it to be fun. So we put the social page in there. Social page will like curate to like what you're searching and like what's important to you. So you have it all on one page. You can still get back to YouTube, Instagram, and all those things, but I just want it to be fun.
Yeah.
And if we can change the mindset of how you look at your career and trying to find it, then I think to me alone, that is like what I want. Like that's the biggest difference maker.
Like, one thing too is that we've learned a lot about our friends in this process that like
you just don't know. That's so true. Because you don't ask the questions.
No, and like I think the one thing you joke about with me a lot is that I don't like talking about work when we're like out.
Yeah.
Some people, like you for example, like
I mean,
you are energized by a work conversation, and there's absolutely
because I like what I do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
right.
I'm a deal maker.
Yeah.
Richie, if Richie's out there, Richie, a rainmaker. I love what I do.
I'm someone that's like kind of on the flip side of that, where it's like I work very hard throughout the week. I could talk about work, but like,
nah, you don't want to.
I really don't want to. Like, I think I want to be respected more about. Like,
but if you were talking about Ashton Avenue though, and I feel like you'd be energized by like, hey, I started a boutique. It's really changing the way people like look at their clothes.
More just like an under the radar person.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel the problem with that is that you do have a story, and the reason we did this episode, you
I'm just an under the radar.
The problem is like, yes, you have the story that everyone needed to hear today, and we just happen to be married. It's like, also you were the hardest person to schedule. Like this makes it does make a little sense. It makes a little sense. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you gotta watch the boys. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But I feel like that's the problem, though, is like
it is.
People don't see you and I and the other guests we're gonna have on the show. Like people don't see us every day, and they don't know the story. They just see the outcome, and they may see us at the restaurant and be like, "Oh, what do they do?" or like whatever. And you just have to show them it's not linear, right? Like so.
And I think when you're on like a platform like LinkedIn, you just see these titles. You don't know what they mean. You don't know what they do.
You have no idea.
You just see like someone's profile and like these 4 different jobs they've had.
You're intimidated.
Yeah, and it's just like you have literally no knowledge on.
It's not. Yeah, you're not like. I'm mixing ChatGPT, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, all in one mobile app, because I feel like when you go to those respectively or whatever, like you're not like ChatGPT, you're getting one thing, you're just searching and you're just getting words back. And like on LinkedIn, it's like you're just seeing a bunch of posts and you're seeing a bunch of like
It's just
job,
like a feed of
yeah, and you're seeing job titles that like you're like I don't know what a senior product manager does at GoDaddy or whatever. And so ideally we want to be able to import that data and like people can really start to like get in tune with like, hey, I took the behavior test, I took the personality test based on how I answered and what I got from it. I could be a product manager, I could be a customer success manager, I could be these three things.
Yeah.
Like that's, essentially what
Like a centralized hub.
centralized, I call it a purpose built scrolling platform. Because I was talking
no comments,
with
right?
no comments. You'll be able to share your stuff though. Like you'll be able to like if you and I are users, I'll be able to share my behavior assessment or I'll be able to share my data sheet with you so that like we can have a conversation or you can create a group like, hey, here's the product management group. Like people talking through like being in product management or here's the greatest one, here's the podcast group, like here's what it takes to start a podcast. And what's nice is like if we kind of do like for example like a large school or something, it's like the school can then take our platform, import all of their majors and all of the job outcomes for those majors. We'll process against that data, and when it pulls back, it will curate on the social page all of the influencers at Ohio State. Because remember, we had influencers. It wasn't even as big as it is now.
No, yeah, I feel like it was like
But it'll curate all of the Ohio State influencers on one page so that like every student can build a community around like, oh, well, this person started their podcast at Teak, or like, how, now you may be able to like reach out to that person and be like, hey, how'd you start your podcast? You still could do that on Instagram. You still can do that on YouTube, but like, I want you to come to the platform and have it consolidated and be able to do it kind of more purposefully versus like, oh, I ran into this on Instagram.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I think it'll help a lot.
It will. Hopefully, we got to iron all that out. But, once we launch here in 1 to 2 weeks, I'm hoping 1, because I've been working on it for a long time. It feels like it really only been about 7 weeks on the app. Like it's been feeling like a long time, but we're almost there. And so, no, I think that's a good place for us to end it. And any last words for the voices of tomorrow? If you could give anything back to the voices of tomorrow, what would it be? I just put you on the spot.
I know. That's really
think through it. It's a complex question.
It is a complex question. I think you just have to do what feels right in the moment, but don't be afraid to like take a step back and maybe do something a little bit unconventional. Like
that's really good. Yeah.
Quit your job when you're about to give birth and
have
your second child and take on a venture of
your own. But I think the message behind that too, though, is like it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay.
Like it's gonna work out.
Something in our household.
Yeah, as long as you're willing to.
Like to stress.
Yep, as long as you're willing to stay at it, like it will work out.
Yeah, I think we've taken enough risks over the however many years.
Yeah, no point in stopping now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I don't really have any doubts, to be honest.
Okay. Well, thank you for jumping on. I know it.
Sorry it took so long.
It's okay. That's all right. We got it done. I thought it was good. I think it was good for everyone to hear that.
I think so. I think maybe we'll like check back first of the year and like see how things are going.
Yeah. If you guys want to reach Sam, call our assistant, me, and
parenting advice.
Okay.
You can call us.
I don't know if you want our parenting advice. You might as well Google whatever because we do things unconventional. I kind of feel like. Or we're just screaming at Beckham all day. Just to drop whatever he's doing. Stop doing that. Stop grabbing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at the end of the day,
Yeah.
in our house.
And everyone should do the same.
I think as long as you support your partner.
Yeah.
And you're honest with them and you communicate.
I think that's the biggest one is like communicate like
we have all lines
open as you can. Yeah. I didn't get to drink any of my coffee.
No, it's probably cold.
Yeah, it's freezing.
So I think that's good.
All right, cool. Thanks everyone.